Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Danielle, aka Stitcherista here on YouTube, and today is a stitch with me while I work on Carolyn Manning Designs Phoenix. I absolutely love this design. I am stitching it with all of the called for DMC, and I am stitching it on hand-dyed fabrics by Stephanie's Vanilla Latte 14 count Aida. I have all of that linked, the pattern and the fabric linked in the description box below. So let's recap the weekend because stuff always happens over the weekend, right? First off, I don't know if I mentioned to you that I've started to drink Hint water. And it's 0 calorie. It's water infused with like the essence of fruit. And by itself, it's not my favorite. And I was sitting here over the weekend and I'm like, oh my God, why have I not thought to add a Crystal Light lemonade pack to it? Total game changer. As in, it now tastes like a fruity lemonade. Yeah, let's go. So, I am drinking one right now that is infused with pineapple essence. So, pineapple lemonade. It's very tasty. Anything that will get me to drink some more water, right? Okay. So, Thursday night, Bill had a captain's meeting for the fishing tournament. And he was home. He left about 4:30 and he was home by 7:30. And then Friday and Saturday, he was gone all day. He was gone until like 7:30 Friday night. And then he was home at about 3. He was home early on Saturday, earlier than I had expected him. And because he was doing that all day and he was going to bed early, I did a lot of stitching. So every time I stitched, I turned on the recorder. So I have already like the stitching part recorded for this whole week, which is so awesome because it lets me get videos up on Thursday and Friday when I'm not going to be home. So all I got to do is the voiceover. So that's awesome. I have enjoyed working on this project so much. I do wish I had one of my stands though that held a Q-snap because it gets kind of, my hand kind of hurts and gets kind of achy from holding the Q-snap. But I manage, and I have been watching so many Lifetime movies. I watched a really good one last night though. It had a twist at the end that I wasn't expecting, called Stalker. Really good. So, Friday night, I had a hair appointment to get my roots done. And she put a darker brown on it. And it's a little too dark for me, but it is what it is. I think actually next time I go, I'm switching it up and going more like light brown and blonde. I really think I'm going to change it up. So we'll see, because my next appointment's not until October 29th. So that's a ways away. But I feel like my hairstylist, she books a lot of people at one time. And when I got there, and you know, I don't know if it was because it had been even a long day with not working. I got there and my appointment was at 5 and she didn't even take me until like quarter after. So already 15 minutes. I was there a total of 2 hours and 20 minutes. There's no way I should have been there for 2 hours and 20 minutes getting a root touch up. I didn't even get a haircut. There was an employee there that was putting up Halloween decorations. Putting up like the webbing. You know, like you can do like spider webs. You ever meet people that have to be just the center of attention and just over the top? Now, mind you, I'm loud, I'm crazy, this was way too much though, this woman that was, and I want to say she was in her early 30s. Just putting up this stuff, and flitting all around the salon. And it was just like, oh my God, my head hurt when I left there. And I was talking to Jill about it, and she's like, yeah, people like that could do cartwheels in front of me, and I just ignore them. I finally just had to ignore her and just act like she wasn't even in there. Because it's almost like everything she did, she wanted everyone to say, oh my God, it looks so good. Blah. Get the fuck out of here. Like, oh my God. I got home and I had such a fucking headache. And Bill and I got home at the same time. I got home about 7:30-ish, and he was just pulling in the driveway. Okay, so there was that. And I'm like, thank God I only got that appointment every 6 weeks. But I told Bill, I said, you know what? I'm going to give it like one more shot. I'm going to give, if it is like that the next time I go, I really think I'm going to find somebody else. I can find somebody else to dye my hair. So let's hope it doesn't come to that, because don't want to find somebody else. But Jesus Christ, I can't fucking take that every time I go in to pay. I paid $75 for my hair to deal with that. No, I don't think so. Okay. Charlize. So my mom messages me. Now Charlize is she's a junior. She's in the 11th grade. And they're back in school. They're in physical school. She messages me, was it Friday? It was Friday night. Yeah. Late Friday night. Bill was already in bed. I was done stitching. I was downstairs in my bed watching TV. She's like, in this one class, Charlize has 3 grades already. She has 2 A's and an E on a quiz. And she's like, you're not even going to believe the reason she has the E. And I'm like, okay. Now, I had to have my mom explain this to me like 3 times, and I still don't know if I quite understand it. They had to do the quiz. It was a quiz. It was 20 questions. They had to do the quiz on paper, but then also submit it by computer. Why? Why would you have to do it twice? That I couldn't understand. Here's the kicker. The teacher says to the students, if you write your name in cursive at the top of the paper, it might not get graded because I can't read cursive. What? First of all, Charlize wrote her name in cursive. I don't know why. If the teacher said that, why wouldn't you just fucking print your name? And my mom is like, Charlize, just print your name from now on, please. So Charlize got her paper back and it said 0 out of 20. Because the teacher didn't grade it because she couldn't read her name, she says. First of all, there's only one Charlize in her class. But what I didn't understand was if you had her quiz by computer, why wouldn't you have graded that one? Do you know what I mean? Like, it just didn't make sense. Like, it didn't gel with me. And my mom's like, do I need to go up to that school? So Charlize was supposed to email a teacher, and I need to check in with my mom to see if it got situated. I was just like, you've got to be fucking kidding me right now. When I told Bill, he was like, huh? Now, I realized that, you know, besides signing my name on a document, like a legal document, I don't write cursive. I sign a check with cursive. When you do your signature, it's fucking cursive. How can you say you can't read cursive? What? My mind was blown. Blown away. Like, what the actual fuck was that? Yeah. Yeah. So, let's get into the true crime story because, yeah. Are there any teachers out there? What do you think? All right, so today's story is an unexplained one. And it's called Escape from Alcatraz. Now, have you seen the movie with Clint Eastwood? Really good. By the way, he's coming out with a new movie, and I think it's already out. You can already see it like on HBO Max. It's called Cry Macho. I want to see it. I love him. I love all his movies. Oh my God. Did you see the one called The Mule? Where he's like a drug mule? Ah! It was so good. Oh my God. Your heart broke for him completely. Okay. So, Escape from Alcatraz. They called it The Rock. They said that it was escape-proof and sent habitual escapees from other correctional facilities there, confident that they would never scale the walls or make it across the treacherous 1.25 miles of frigid water to the mainland. Okay, and before I go on, my favorite movie of all time, and this will probably never ever change, is Shawshank Redemption, starring Tim Robbins, Morgan Freeman. Have you seen this movie? It is about a prison escape, really, in a nutshell. Tim Robbins' character. Oh my God. The end of that movie, I cry every single time. And I know what's coming. I've seen this movie probably 50 or 60 times. And it's like a long movie. It's like a 2.5-hour movie, almost 3 hours. So good. You love Tim Robbins' character. You love Morgan Freeman. Oh my God. They couldn't have cast any better people in this movie. So good. Okay. So, and for the most part, they were right. During the 29 years that it served as a federal penitentiary, there were 14 escape attempts from Alcatraz involving 36 inmates. 23 of them were swiftly recaptured, 6 were shot and killed by guards, and 2 drowned. Only 5 are unaccounted for. 2 of those were I need to slow down here. 2 of those were Theodore Cole and Ralph Rowe, who attempted to swim across San Francisco Bay in 1937 and are believed to have drowned in the attempt. Okay. The fate of the other 3, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, is more ambiguous. They entered the water in an improvised raft in June of 1962 and were never seen again. The official line is that they drowned, but there is reason to believe that they might not have. Ooh, let's go. This is kind of a long story, so buckle in. Frank Morris was an enigma. Possessed of a genius-level IQ of 133, Frank was nonetheless a habitual felon and had been since his teens. He wasn't some criminal mastermind either. His crimes were petty, impulsive, and often reckless. Abandoned as a child, Frank had spent his formative years being shuffled from one foster home to another. He had racked up his first arrest at age 13, landing him in juvenile detention. Frank. From that point on, his life was a monotonous cycle, brief periods of freedom punctuated by yet another prison term on charges ranging from drug possession to armed robbery. He also earned a reputation as an accomplished escape artist, landing him eventually in Alcatraz as inmate number AZ-1441. John and Clarence Anglin had followed a similar path through life. The Anglins weren't drawn to crime by abandonment issues, though. They were members of a large clan. So hereditary criminals. With them, it was the crippling poverty and backbreaking labor as itinerant farm laborers that drove them to criminality. John and Clarence and their brother Alfred eventually landed up at the federal penitentiary in Atlanta after a series of bank robberies. That was where they first met Frank Morris. Like Morris, they were noted escapists, a habit that saw them eventually shipped to the Rock. You know what? This is making me think of so many movies. Have you guys seen the movie? And I'm going to look it up real quick. Yes, this is a voiceover, so you may hear me typing. I don't know what it's called. I'm trying to look it up. Oh, why is it not coming up? Clive Owen was in it. Inside Man. Okay. This movie. I'm going to read you the premise if you haven't seen it. It's an older movie. It's from 2006. And that's the movie poster. Basically, it's so good. Oh my God, it's so good. So the premise of it, the perfect bank robbery quickly spirals into an unstable and deadly game of cat and mouse between a criminal mastermind, a determined detective, and a power broker with a hidden agenda. And there is something that happens at the end. My mouth fell open. It's so good. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend. Inside Man. Okay. Back to the story. So, they're all in the same prison. They meet Morris. They were noted escapists, a habit that saw them eventually shipped to the Rock, Alcatraz. There they were placed in adjacent cells, flanked on either side by Morris and by Alan West, who had ended up in Alcatraz after a failed escape attempt from the state penitentiary in Florida, West had served time with the Anglins before, and he knew Frank Morris by reputation. Another movie, The Count of Monte Cristo. Another one of my favorite movies. Oh my God. The guy escapes from like this French prison, which Chateau d'If or something like that. How he escapes, good night. It's so good though. Love that movie too. I have seen so many movies. Holy shit. Yeah. Okay. The original nugget of an escape plan began to take shape in December 1961 when Alan West found several old saw blades discarded in a utility corridor. West took these to Morris, and from that point on, it was Morris who took charge of the escape plan, despite West's later attempts to take credit. The plan was simple in concept but extremely complex to execute. The men would widen the ventilation ducts positioned under the wash basins in their cells. They would enter the shaft and climb up onto the roof of the cell block. From there, they would climb down a vent pipe to the ground, make their way to the shore, and board a raft that they would row across the bay to the mainland. Now, if you have seen Shawshank Redemption, it's not a given that you know that Tim Robbins' character escapes. How he does it, though, oh my God, and how long it takes him. My favorite takeaway from that movie is the power of patience and extreme fucking patience, because it takes Tim Robbins' character like fucking 19 years or some shit. That is some patience. 19 years? 19 years. Yeah. Okay. So they would board a raft that would row across the bay to the mainland. So far, so simple, but making it work would require ingenuity, nerve, and a healthy dose of good fortune. The first task given to each of the men was to widen the vents in their cells. This was achieved with crude improvised tools, the old saw blades, metal spoons smuggled out of the mess hall, and later an electric drill constructed from a vacuum cleaner motor that West had stolen. These efforts, of course, made noise, and so their work was confined to music hour every evening, when the sound of Frank Morris's accordion masked the scraping and drilling and banging. The escapees also made screens of painted cardboard to cover the holes they were making in the walls. These were good enough to fool the casual observer. If any of the guards had decided to take a closer look, though, they would have been busted. I'm telling you, whoever wrote Shawshank Redemption, I want to say it was Stephen King, wrote the book. They had to read this story and get the idea for the movie because, yeah. Construction of these escape holes took the prisoners 6 months. Finally, the holes were wide enough for them to squeeze through and enter the ventilation shaft. From this point on, the men would climb each night to the vacant upper level of the cell block where they had set up a clandestine workshop. Here, over 50 raincoats, some stolen and some donated by other prisoners, would be transformed into an inflatable 6x14 raft and into life preservers. What? Frank Morris had found the design for the raft in an old issue of Popular Mechanics. Its construction involved painstakingly sticking together sections of the raincoats, strengthening the joins with glue stolen from the prison workshop, and sealing them with heat from the steam pipes that ran throughout the prison. Okay, let's think about that. Once it got big enough, how would you be able to get them? Oh, well, the steam pipes in their room, I'm guessing. I don't know how, yeah. Paddles for the raft were constructed from scraps of wood found around the prison, held together with screws. As for inflating the raft, this was achieved with a bellows fashioned from Morris's accordion. Once the raft was completed, the inmates tested it and it worked. Where'd they fucking test it at? Now they just had to pray that it would hold together in the rough waters of the bay. I guess they all hopped on it because, let's see if it would hold them. So, of course, being absent from their cells for long periods at night held considerable risks for the inmates. The guards did frequent inspections and an empty bed would quickly raise the alarm. But Frank Morris had a plan for that. Before they even got started, he and his confederates constructed dummy heads made from a mixture of soap, toothpaste, concrete dust, and toilet paper. What the fuck? I'm impressed, gentlemen. These were daubed with paint stolen from the maintenance workshop, giving them a flesh tone. They even had real hair made from clippings picked up from the barbershop floor. Shoved some towels and clothing under the blankets to approximate the shape of a body, and it was easy to fool a guard with a flashlight. Wow. Have you guys also seen, I'm telling you, there's been so many prison movies. Have you also seen the series that was on originally Fox called Prison Break? Ah! If you haven't seen it, highly recommend that too. So good. By June of 1962, all of the preparations were in place. June 11th would be the night of the Great Escape. And for one of the escapees, though, there would be no shot at freedom. The hole in Alan West's cell had begun to crumble over the previous week, forcing him to shore it up with cement, and this diminished its size, making it impossible for West to squeeze through. He did eventually manage the feat, but by then it was too late. West got to the roof to find that his Confederates had already left. He then returned to his cell and went to sleep, to be woken after sunrise when the alarm was raised. He would later cooperate fully with the authorities in exchange for immunity from prosecution. So obviously it's through his testimony that we know so much about the escape and how it was done. Because I'm like, if these guys escaped, right, you wouldn't have even known. So Frank Morris and the Anglins would have made their move at 9:30 p.m. immediately after lights out. Leaving their dummy heads in place, they squeezed through their escape holes and climbed to the upper level of the cell block. Here they retrieved their raft, paddles, and life preservers and hauled them to the roof. Then they descended 50 feet to the ground, sliding down a vent pipe. 2 12-foot barbed wire fences stood between them and the shoreline, and they scaled these. From there, they headed for an inlet on the northeast of the island near the power plant, a blind spot for the searchlights. Here they inflated their raft using the improvised bellows. Then they took to the water, heading for Angel Island, 2 miles to the north. They would not be seen or heard from again. Where did they go? Do you think they survived? The response of the authorities, as you might imagine, was emphatic. Yeah. Alcatraz had always been touted as an unescapable prison. It had a reputation to uphold. By mid-morning, multiple law enforcement agencies supported by the military were engaged in a joint air, sea, and land search. It would last for 10 days and turn up scant clues. On June 14th, a Coast Guard cutter found a paddle floating about 200 yards off the southern shore of Angel Island. Later that day, a commercial boat picked up a wallet wrapped in plastic. This had a list of names and addresses of the Anglins' friends and relatives. A week later, shreds of plastic believed to be the remains of the raft washed up on a beach near the Golden Gate Bridge. And the following day, a prison boat picked up a deflated life preserver made of the same material, and this was found just 50 yards off Alcatraz Island. So it left the FBI to conclude that the men had probably drowned. And yeah, I mean, you would think that. You would, right? But not everyone agrees that Frank Morris and his Confederates met their end in the cold waters of San Francisco Bay. So opinion is sharply divided on the issue. The most common argument against their survival is that none of the men was ever heard from again, right? And then it would have been difficult, near impossible, to disappear so completely with every law agency in the country looking for them. See, Tim Robbins' character had it on fucking lockdown. Like, if you watch the movie, you will see what he did. He had his shit ready. Yeah. The argument usually put forward to support their success is that no bodies were found, which would surely have been the case had they drowned. 2 out of 3 drowning victims is eventually recovered from the bay. Here, a massive 10-day search involving the Coast Guard and Air Force turned up nothing but a few bits of debris. According to the pro-escape group, these had probably been deliberately thrown into the water by the escapees to create the impression that they had come to trouble. Maybe. Try to throw them off the trail, off the scent, right? In 1989, the television show Unsolved Mysteries attempted to put an end to the speculation once and for all by staging a recreation of the escape. Really? 3 experienced kayakers were put into a raft similar to the one used by the escapees. They had to be rescued from the bay after their craft came apart halfway across. A swimmer following a similar route succeeded in making the crossing. In 2003, the Discovery Channel program Mythbusters repeated the experiment. It used a raft that was constructed using the same materials and tools available to the inmates, and they made it successfully across the bay, landing at the Marin Headlands. Conclusion? The crossing was definitely possible and not even that difficult. I think they're alive. Well, maybe not now. Didn't even say what the year was. What was the year? Does it say? 1961. So they'd be really old by now. Okay. So, but perhaps a better gauge of viability is an actual escape attempt. So on December 16th, 1962, inmate John Paul Scott tried to escape the island by swimming to freedom. He made it all the way to Fort Point, a distance of 2.7 miles, where he was later found suffering from hypothermia and exhaustion. Scott had covered a distance greater than that which Morris and the Anglins had aimed for, and he had done it in less than favorable weather conditions without a raft. So they fucking did it. They escaped. I think they did. So perhaps the Alcatraz 3 did make it across after all. But if that is the case, then what happened to them after they made landfall? Alan West's testimony might offer a clue. The plan, according to him, was to burglarize a clothing store and then steal a car and head east. The FBI had always claimed that no such crimes were reported around the time of the breakout. It had frequently cited this as further proof that the escapees had ended up at the bottom of the bay, but this is not entirely true. A blue 1955 Chevrolet was stolen in Marin County on the morning after the escape, and the same vehicle was later spotted 80 miles east of San Francisco in Stockton, where it was involved in an incident with another motorist, and he said there were 3 men in the vehicle. Oh, let's go! They escaped. You know they did. You know it. So if those 3 men were in fact Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, then it was the last official sighting. Of course, there have been many reports since, as is always the way with high-profile cases. Most of these can be readily dismissed, but there is at least one that bears mentioning. So in 1975, a childhood friend of the Anglin brothers returned from a trip to Brazil and told members of the extended Anglin clan that he had met up with John and Clarence in Rio. Fred Breezy even produced a photograph of 2 men standing near a large termite mound, which he said was taken on the farm where they were staying. The photo was somewhat fuzzy and the men were wearing sunglasses, making a conclusive identification impossible. Nonetheless, forensic experts examined the photos and asserted that the 2 men were more than likely the Anglins. The story would later be called into question when Breezy's background was examined. He was a con man who, according to his ex-wife, found it impossible to tell the truth. The Breezy sighting eventually came to be considered a hoax. 4 years later, in 1979, the FBI closed its investigation and transferred the case to the U.S. Marshal Service, and according to the Bureau, Morris and the Anglins were long dead. However, the case would be back in the news in January of 2020, when a company called Iden TV was contracted to analyze the Breezy photograph. Iden TV is a pioneer in facial recognition using the latest technology, including AI, to achieve astoundingly accurate results, and in this case, a convolutional neural network was trained to recognize the brothers from old photographs. The Breezy photograph was then entered into the system, and it concluded with a high degree of confidence that the men in the photo were John and Clarence Anglin. Alcatraz Prison closed its doors as a federal penitentiary in 1963. Today, it is a popular tourist destination with the cells of Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin attracting the most interest from visitors. Oh my God! Can you imagine? I think they escaped. But let me know what you thought down below. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.